Okay, hi. So I'm in the middle of a thing. In the middle of the thing is welcome, by the way. So the thing that I'm in the middle of is that one of the things I'm going to get at today is a one-page I found. I cleaned my studio this week, and in the course of cleaning my studio this week, I found some one-page comic suggestions that I had written down on pieces of paper, scribbled on a couple of them, and did nothing with because I got caught up in doing projects for others and projects for myself. So we're going to get in on that today. All right. In the meantime, hi. How's everybody doing? I'm going to put up the standardized thing. Blunk. There we go. Got a whole bunch of things on the burner right now, and I'm really excited about that. One is some voiceover work for a fantastic opportunity, a project I'm really excited about and looking forward to. Going to be doing some voiceover work for bowling commentators or announcers, and that is a lot of fun. Didi says, "Afternoon, Christopher. Love finding things when cleaning." Didi, I believe that you have a studio set up similar to how I do, in the sense that we're always kind of finding things that we knew we had, but we didn't know where we put it. In fact, I think I've heard that during your streams, and I'm sorry I missed your stream this morning. I had a couple meetings, and really good, productive meetings, and a couple of jobs coming up, possibly. Good stuff. Good stuff. I love that. What? Yeah. So, this is yesterday's page. This is from a suggestion. I think it was Jim Luan that gave me this one. I'm not. See, case in point, I immediately have lost my book. I'll have to watch the last 2 minutes later. Oh my. Oh no. Is the last 2 minutes a perfect example of I don't know where I put a thing? But I will. Definitely will. I'll try to watch the whole thing, much less the last 2 minutes. Because when it comes to somebody, I saw the title was you went to a clearance aisle at a supply store. And, it's a dangerous thing. So, okay. I'm getting more organized. Chris has written things down on a thing. It's in my book, my sketchbook. And I'm going to try not to draw all over it right away. Yeah, it was Rasputin, David Bowie, and Joan Crawford share a giant breakfast burrito. So that was yesterday's suggestion. Hobby Lobby, thank you. Oh, I'll giggle. Oh, I bet you I will. Okay. Sorry. Just having a quick little snack. Make sure the blood sugar is all happy-dappy. So the suggestion was Rasputin, David Bowie, and Joan Crawford share a breakfast burrito. So that's what I tried to represent here. I looked up some interviews of Joan Crawford, who would always say, "By golly," when she's talking. It's funny, when you catch these little, repetitive phrases. And I saw 2 different interviews of her, and she says "by golly" at least twice in each. So it was kind of funny to me. I had to put that in there. And thank you. She says thank you a lot. Incredibly polite. So, but very much a strong personality that knows she sticks to her convictions, and she knows what she has said and what she hasn't said. And she has behavior herself that she thinks is irresponsible. And wow, I was really impressed. I didn't know that much about Joan Crawford. Just that salacious movie about how she was a particularly nice mom. And then David Bowie, this was when he says, "I'm called David." And I don't know if you have any British friends, but some of the ones that I have, my name is not what they'll say. They'll say, "I am called this." We need Gary and Jim for next page ideas. Well, we've got 5 page ideas lined up, but it's a lot of fun, that interaction. And I really enjoy that both Jim and Gary are part of that. Same with Salty. I know his real name, but I don't know if he wants me to say it. And I've got an upcoming idea. So here's some of the upcoming ideas. Today we're going to work on urban Sasquatch hunters. This is an old page that I brought out, and that's for Salty. There's a gunfight between the Salt and Pepper. or I'm sorry, salt and pepper shakers about to engage in a gunfight. And then there's my partner, my wife has remarriage and dishes is a 1-page idea. And then Paul Pate's got famous historical characters in a boxing contest, which I think could be some real fun. Werner Herzog hosting a beauty pageant is from Twinkle Pies, and Horror Monsters doing the Brady Bunch theme from Frank. So that's what we've got lined up right now. And we've had some fun interactions. Jim, Luan, Gary Hodges, Andy Wheatley, Chad LeDuc, Didi, who's here with us talking. I can say, okay, Salty's name is Malcolm. Thank you, Malcolm. Okay, there we go. All right, Didi says, hi, Salty. My brother or my father-in-law gave me the idea for that balloon, the Chinese spy balloon. So Philip Chandler as well. So we've had a lot of ideas coming in from folks in the last couple weeks here, and I'm really, really appreciative of that. It's a lot of fun, these challenges and how they push me to try and do different things. This page was drawn in ballpoint pen. I have got the original here to show as well. So you see the finished result. And now if I switch the camera here for a moment and switch it to the overhead, this is the original pencil or the original penned page. And you can see how, as I'm drawing the elements, I'm making some decisions and shifting where things are a little bit here so that when I scan it, I relocate some of those elements and reposition them, separating those borders a little bit better, adjusting the size slightly on a couple of things. The idea is to take what we start with. Oh, that's very nice, Aditi. Thank you very much. When you take the image and then you scan it and you put it into the system, it allows you the opportunity to then pursue different parts of your composition together. Like one of the things that you can do is to reiterate a visual element. You can scan, or you can use the rectangular tool, and you can highlight over a area of your drawing, copy that, paste it as another layer, transposition it to the alternate direction, enlarge in that, and it becomes a separate visual element. It's actually a repetitive visual element, but what it does is it puts a greater spotlight specifically onto that element of the image. And because the specific suggestion for this was giant breakfast burrito, I wanted to have the breakfast burrito that's on the table, which is already enormous, let's be honest. 3 people couldn't sit down to finish that. But I wanted to enhance it, make it even larger, so it truly is a giant. So big that David Bowie and Grigory Rasputin are dancing on it to close out the page. So, yeah, which is a reference to a music video. And if anybody can remember it, I'm a happy, happy monkey. So that's the notion there. And of course, for anybody that's joining that isn't aware, this is in relation to the 1-page comic extravaganza. The 1-page comics that I've been doing for the last couple of years, one after another, and whatever different medium that I'm using at the specific time. And we're on our way to a number of more. This was specifically the 37th 1-page comic since the start of the year. So happy. We're plodding along quite nicely. At least 5 to 7 a week. So in addition to the other stuff I got to do. And now I've rounded out on getting a couple of other things done at the same time. So while I'm going to jump onto my computer screen and share some secrets. And some of the secrets are when I'm working on a project, one of the things that I'm doing is I'm sitting down and I'll draw the images. I'll put the images together in one place, in one location, but then I'll go about And I'll scan those into the computer, into that secondary location, and then transposition those elements around in any way that I'd like, which is, what I've already detailed for this page that we're looking at today. So when it comes to, I'm sorry, I switched the camera back. Let me get that correct. So when it comes to the scanning, so you can see the pre-existing scan, and I had to scan a page in thirds if it's an 11 by 17. So if I preview what I've got now, I already started drawing the images down for the urban Sasquatch hunters when this was one of the last pages that I started working into, and I got so swept up in work, I had to set this aside. So I'm scanning it. I'm scanning it at 400 BPI. You should scan at least at 300 for whatever imagery you're using so that you can get all the details and all the fiddly bits in it, right? So I'm scanning that now, and then it's going to go into my scan folder. And from there, I can dump it into Photoshop, set this as a layer, but we're going to ink over top of it. So these are all scans and pings of little effects and over effects that I can place on any of the images that I do. And just 1 second, and I'm going to flip this, and because there's more elements to scan it. What did I actually? I did scan it. Okay, so my outfit today is called Business Comfortable. I've had a couple interviews, so I'm wearing my suit jacket as I tend to be comfortable wearing a suit jacket because I'm a square weirdo. But I've got plaid pants on. Yep, stylish. You might not have seen those in camera, and I've just given away something I didn't need to anyways, but there you go. Welcome to the show. Okay, so now I'm scanning the second half of the page, and because of the separation of these panels, that's going to work. It's going to scan this page in 2 parts as opposed to having to do 3 and overlay those images together to stitch the image to the back into shape, because I'll have elements that'll move from one panel into another. But unfortunately, because of the size of my scanning bed, I won't get the whole thing in. Okay, so, and the scanner works for me. I've got it set in certain ways to, there's little settings. You play around with those until you find the right thing. Of course, direct the files to where you want them. And then I've got a page set up here already. And I get my page sizes set up because I'll use the rectangular tool and do the marching ants over top of the previous existing page that I just did, right? And then I'll take that and I will copy that. Then I go into the file list and hit new, and it comes out at the same size as the pre-existing page. So that way, all my pages are a uniform size. So when I go to the next stage of printing said materials out, they're all ready to go. Okay, so now that I've got this together, I'll drag down this element, pull it over on top, and it drops a copy of it in there. Okay, set that back up. So there's the base element. Okay, the base blank screen, which I've now dropped one element onto from another file. I'll grab a hold of that file, pull it down over top, move over here to the layers column, touch the mouse on it, hold the mouse down, drag it over, and drop it over top of that blank page, which is now no longer blank. So I don't need those 2 anymore now, those 2 files. I've got everything here. And so one of the things that I can do is Control T, which move down to, transform. And then I'm going to rotate this sucker counterclockwise. I'll pull it over and press enter, drop it there. And then I'm going to go down to the layer for the first image that I dropped, Control T, edit, down to transform, across, and down over to rotate. I'll drag the image over here, press enter again. Okay, so I'm going to take that top layer off, and I'm going to pull this up. So one of the things that I find it really helpful to do is that I'll make a duplicate layer for the background white, okay? And I will merge that with the different layers that I've dropped in whatever size or scale. Okay, and so that's what I'm doing here. Oh, Didi, thank you very much. I'm sorry I missed that. That's very nice of you. And hi, Gary. So I've got this now as one complete layer. You know, you can see how there's a missing background area behind this layer because I haven't done this quite as yet. So I'll do the same thing again, duplicate that layer. I'll take off the background layer. I'll take the eyeball off of that sucker. Move up to layer 2 and highlight that. And then I'll go up in here into my directory and I'll hit merge visible. So now this layer has a white background. Okay? And then this is the way that I transfer any of my line art, okay, into a layer that doesn't have any of the white background in it anymore. And so what I mean by that is, in this context, so what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to Control A, which highlights the whole sucker. Control C, which copies that whole sucker. I'm going to move over the channels, open a new layer, which comes down as an alpha layer, and it's black screen like that. Don't panic like I used to do. Hey, some news. And then I'm going to go Control V. And what the heck happened there? I don't know. That's good stuff. Do it on camera, Chris. So I've got Control, this whole thing highlighted. Yeah. Run the whole layer. That's weird, eh? Try it again. Control C. Control B. There we are. Happy days. So then I'm going to highlight. I don't know if you can see it. Hold on. Let me get my big noggin out of the way. Thanks for doing 3 books a week, Gary. I'm enjoying your selections. Nice. Nice. I'm going to have to pay more attention to that. I missed half of the program last night, Gary. I want to sit down and watch that. Okay, so this is a layer now under the alpha. So I'm going to go over to, in the channels column, I'm going to go over to layers. You can see how the marching ants appears again. New layer. And then I'm going to go over here to the bucket tool. And I've chosen this light blue color. What the hell just happened? I'm just winning today, aren't I? Yeah, I don't know what's going on today. Of course, it's in camera that my program goes nuts, right? Let's just go back to the start of the whole thing. Yeah, happy days. Okay, see, I'm doing this quickly just to get us back to V. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I know what I didn't do. So hold on to Control and Shift and press the I after you've hit those. And that inverses the image. So now when I put the color down, so sorry for that. What a silly example that was. Back to the paint bucket tool. So now when I press this, you can see how it just highlights the actual image itself. Okay, and I am a bit of a lunatic, so I'll duplicate that just because. All right, so I'll hit the, and if I'll hit the rectangular tool and tap it once so that it removes the marching ants. I'll remove the original image that we flipped, and I'll put up the white background again. Right? So if I do this a lot because I'm complicated. So I'm going to merge these two just so that the blue is nice and dark enough for me. But that is now the drawing image that I'm going to use to ink over. All of that for that, huh? So that's what affords me the opportunity to take the thing that I've already drawn and not lose that. But if I want to switch the process that I'm working in, if I want to switch it from doing it traditionally to doing it in the computer, I don't have to lose any of the progress I've made. I wasn't happy with some of the physicality of the characters that I put in here, A, and B, some of the style of the lines. There's just too much flat uniformity to these lines. And I think this is before I dialed into those Fudenosuke pens that have this wonderful thing for the thickening and thinning of their line quality. So that's why I just feel it's a little too flat and uniform. So, all right, so I'm going to pull out on that, and I'm going to merge our two layers here into one. Okay, and now I'm going to take that layer, Control T, highlights the layer, holding down the shift, I'm going to drag it to the corner so it pulls out the image, but it does so that it's not losing its shape. You know, so when you just grab the side, you're dragging everything, you're pulling everything to the side. If you just grab the top, you're pulling everything to the top. If you grab it by the corner and you pull it from the corner, you're warping the image now. So one way or another, contorting the image from its initial form. So that's all the steps that I go through in order to not just scan, but be able to dump images into the computer so that I can convert them to pencils so that I can ink over top of them and then have some fun. One of the things about doing some things digitally is that I don't want to be constrained in that. I want to have some fun in that. This page is called Urban Sasquatch Hunters, and I believe it was suggested by Malcolm. So the idea here is to get an example of these characters that are dressed up with all this film equipment and doodaddery so that they can go and hunt Sasquatches in the downtown area of a city, which is a fantastically ridiculous idea. One that I really respect, Amalgam, but it's silly. It's a wonderfully silly idea. The idea of these people that hang out in the woods with all their cameras and their sound equipment, get-ups. Do you hear that? I could definitely hear a sort of scruffling sound, almost like a heavy breathing. Sounds like a bear, but more human. I think we found something. You know, one of those things. They're the best. It's a live reenactment, folks. So yeah. So what I'm outlining here is, you know, I'm staying open to all these new avenues and opportunities, and a lot of these suggestions really help me out with that. And that's fantastic. But another part of it all is that when you figure out your flow, when you figure out your dynamic of what works for you, embrace that, engage in that. And we don't all, you know, work the same way, and we don't all work at the same pace, and we don't all have the same stylistic approach. So it's good to work with other creators, you know, on anthology projects or shared projects, or somebody who's got just this great script and a number of people have sat down together and chopped it up and said, you take this part, I'll do that part, I'll do this part, and put it together. And that fusion might have some crazy things. So, you know, you can have projects that work with a bunch of people working together, but to their own rhythm, their own dynamic. Hey, Paul Page joined us. How you doing, Paul? Oh, that's very nice of you, Paul. Thank you. So there's opportunities and ways in which we can work together without challenging the time that we have available or challenging the approach that we have for what works for us in our ways of putting together material. There's all those little things, right? There's all those little elements that we can do with. So I know somebody who draws street scenes because he has preloaded a bunch of scanned and converted to line art images of things like telephone poles or street lights or mailboxes and things like that. And so I've never seen anybody who works so fast for putting together all of these things into a page as he does. And he's even built them in 3D graphics so that he can turn these objects around for however he needs them. And that's fantastic, but I mean, there's a big layer of involvement that he has for that, just to be able to quick work on a project from somebody else's layout. So, we all work our different ways, right? So don't keep yourself from those opportunities, but find the best ways and means in order for you to work from. I don't know. That's my thinky. Wrong. Put that back. I forgot to put down a layer for the inks. So one of the ways I can keep track of this is pencils. It's a lot of juggling to blather on at you guys. I hope it doesn't come up as blathering, but trying to keep track of what I'm doing at the same time. I get ahead of myself sometimes. Inks. So now I've got saved separate layers for these different aspects of the image. I can actually go ahead at this point and delete the two different scanned parts of the page. Yeah? Or do I still need the second one? I think I still need the second one. Okay, it doesn't matter. We can put it down again. So now that I've got the key elements, the key layers involved, the key element put together for what I want to work on right now, good to go. So now that I've set up this extra layer in order to do some inking, I can try some different things and have a little bit of fun. Now I've got a pencil tool down for my inking. Everybody, of course, swears by different things that they're going to use for their process. I'm just about playing. One of the things that I've done is set up, and I hope this comes up on your screen. This is the amount of crazy brushes and textures and patterns. I've got so many, it takes a second for my computer to try to pull them all together. But this is, I filled it. I've actually filled the menu. So in order to be able to try different things. Howdy, Jim. Whoops, there's that one. Hey, she got your mug in today. Cool stuff. Jim does mugs? I gotta get a mug. Do you do me-sized mugs? Do you got giant super-sized mugs? That was the sound of me drinking, in case you heard that without the visual. Okay, so because I've got all these different brushes available to try to use, it sort of affords me all kinds of things to play with and all kinds of different modulations. Like this is just plaid patterns that I've got into here. So, just fun, cool things. Like here is, this is just, what layer I'm on? So this is just this weird rock with water thing that I've found. And I found a bunch of these different brushes so that what I like the idea of doing is putting those down. Well, I'll just do it now. So if I put this down, yeah, I'm down at 18%. So if I drop that there, Control-T holds onto it for transforming. So now if I drag this across and use this as a base for the background, then I got this fun, cool texture going through the buildings, Oh, that glitters. Oh, that's awesome. That's so nice. That's nice. Yeah, where can, you're just going to show it on Monday's stream. Jim, can you put in the text here where we can go and find that? Or GD, can you put down where we can go and find Jim's mugs so that, myself or anybody else that might be interested in picking those up can find one. Okay, so I'm going to highlight this and I'm going to drag it up to the plane where the buildings start from. So that's my building background texture. Actually, I'm going to go back 2 steps just so that I can put it down even lighter. Just so that it really truly becomes embedded as part of it. All right. Yeah, that's good fun. This crazy ass thing after. All right. Okay. Only mods can add links. Oh, okay. I'll have to figure that part out. I'll make its own separate layer for this. Is it on your website, Jim, or is it on Amazon? Amazing. Save that there. Yeah. See, now it's nice and light, so I can still see my background line working there, so I can pull that through. So there's a number of different pencils and pens and the like that came through a program from Scott Circlin from his newsletter. I got a couple of cool little tools in there that I liked. So it gives a couple of nice little inking brushes in that. The meaning of life. You missed the meaning of life. Excellent. Society 6. Society 6. I'm writing it down. Jim's mugs. Yeah. Awesome. Good stuff. Mug chat. And now it's time for Mug Chat with Jim Luan. All right. So, just going to duplicate this one more time. See, that makes it appear a little more strong. Just going to flatten out as a layer. Don't need all kinds of complicated layers here. Chris, when are you going to get to inking this dang thing? I'm getting there. All right, so I've got my brush setting. I've got the size setting that I want to try. I can start putting some marks down. Raise my opacity. I usually go to half. And the reason that I go to half is that it lets me build up my line. But you can see how putting the marks down and just exploring those lines and playing with them. I'm not using a ruler purposely so that I can get some of that kinetic energy back into the thing, because what's the point of just, I can't trace over my own drawings. It drives me crazy. So by approaching inking in this way, it lets me find some different value to the lines and play a little bit with it and not get too caught up in it. And, you know, just got to keep it interesting, right? But there's all kinds of things that I want to add in here as I'm going. You know, there's little textures, there's some hash work with the lines, there's some additional elements I want to put in. It's all about just engaging with it and having fun. Now, I know that I see some people now on the internet that are constantly spinning their images around in order to get their inking done. Not something I figured out yet. But when I do, oh boy, are we ever going to get dizzy. So what I was saying earlier is that there's some changes in the last few months alone about working process and my comfort level with working digitally and with working with different tools and figuring out different ways of making marks and in ways that I didn't quite have the comfort level with before. But because of the amount that I'm doing of late and some of the processes that I'm using, I'm finding fun new ways to put down lines, and it's really helping me out. Dee Dee says, I use Procreate. It spins on a dime. But I don't make comics either. We should make fantastic collages, though. And her calligraphy is on point. was really impressed by that, Dee. Okay, so this is what I'm sort of referring to in that the lines, some of these lines in the faces, that now that you can see the under image and then the over image, there's a stylistic approach that's changing for me in that inking or in that drawing method that I'm able to find now working digitally. So it just, like with anything else, it just takes time, right? It just takes immersion and practice and repetition. And, that effort, whatever level of effort you're putting into that, it's going to grow inevitably. And the reason that it's going to grow is because you've taken that time to do it. You're more than welcome, Didi. I'm really quite impressed by your calligraphy. It's steadier hand than I have. Like, the more that we engage in something, the more that we utilize these tools and become comfortable with them to whatever extent, the more that we're going to find different ways to go about doing the things that we're already doing. And it's going to afford us the chance to find new approaches, new directions, new ways of working. And the challenge I find that when, especially for me when working with others, is that oftentimes, depending on what that project is, when you're working for somebody else, you don't have an awful lot of time and space. There's not an awful lot of versatility for exploration and experimentation in those projects. I think that it's so necessary for you to sit down and to sit, just sit beside the other person and get that project on its way, to get things moving along. And so because of that, it doesn't let you maybe learn to develop some different skills and insights into how you're going about exploring storytelling or pursuing different opportunities that might have presented themselves to you for the specific project that you're on, because you're under a time constraint and you're under a working constraint. Now, at the same time, maybe you're too wild and crazy, which I think I might fit in a column of, that you might need some more constraints. And that helps you develop the discipline to just sit down and get something done. All things being relative, right? But it's kind of a fun thing to sit down and reassess process and progress along the way in your own journey. Now, I'm not suggesting everybody not look at working with others, but I'm just saying that there's some differences from one to the other, clearly. One of the things I really get a charge out of in doing the London Comic Jam each month is the affordance that it gives me to not only work with other comic adults, but to work with kids. There are a few things crazier on this planet than the way in which kids process information and kids create story. Because to them, it's so automatic and intuitive, and they're so completely unfiltered by any preconceptions at all. What a gift that is. We got too caught up in that and second guessing our decisions as adults because of A, B, C and factoring all these extra things in. Whereas kids, no. He eats mud. Why? Well, because he likes mud. Good enough. Dee says, I have had careers that were create on demand. You learn to come up with ideas fast. I have to make myself slow down. Yeah. Oh, I completely can see that, Dee. You ever have that thing? And anybody's welcome to throw in on this one. Does anybody have that problem when they're doing that idea generation with other people and you spit ideas out like hot fire because that's how your brain might work? But then everybody goes, yeah, that one. And it's the least one that you want to do. As soon as you say it, you're like, I don't want to do that one. Because you're already jumping onto the next notion. And maybe that next notion is one that you're more dialed into. But everybody's already jumped into, it's a surfer who's got underwater superpowers and he can control water. And you're like, oh, for heaven's sakes. Or, hey, let's make this entire, parade float out of taffeta. The logistics of that have to come in secondly, right? So you can still see I'm still on that same inks layer. It's all sitting there on the same layer. I transferred over to drawing the foreground on this layer. I'm going to draw in the background on a separate layer. And the reason I'm going to do that is that because I've become more aware of this, I can now take that second layer and transition the color of all the line art that I put down for that to a different value. Whether it's I beef up the darkness of the foreground layer and I push back the value of the background layer, whether the foreground layer is a black, but the background layer lines are brown, And if anybody has those stories, by the way, I'd be keen to hear them. I think those are the greatest. That's the ones that we instantaneously regret what we just said. Hey, why don't we do an 8-page comic series about fish? Just talking fish. No people. We want to get to the purity of it, the pure image. Thank you, Herzog. The pure image. Get away from the abomination and decay. I clearly looked at a Werner Herzog video today. I've done that to myself more times than I can count. So I like the affordance that the eraser tool presents us with working digitally, I have to admit. Because I'm Mr. Hey, I'm going to change that. Hey, I'm going to change that. Hey, I'm going to change that. And seeing as I'm afforded that because of Photoshop and the eraser tool, I'm going to use it. So some of the line that because of comfort level again, I find that my line have become a little more organic and a little more shapely as time has gone on. I don't see you, Chris. I think you're nuts. That's what I want to be. I want it to look more bendy. Just some fun movement in the form in order to keep the eye wiggling around all over the old page. By the way, your request on demand. That happens, Jim. That happens when people request Christopher Walken at the drop of a hat. Case in point. Let me think about that for a second. That's a good one. Let me think. Hi, wanna? Yes. Banana who? That's not a knock joke, is it? Yeah, knock. Hey, hello, welcome. Come on into my home. No, it's not how you do it. You say, who's there? Who is there? No, we just let me do it from the start. See, I can't do it. They're too close. You got to record those as separate parts. I clearly get way too into characters too, because I just immediately start having a dialogue between them. It's the way my brain works when I'm writing my pages, is that I think of them, the stories in the context of dialogue, and immediately have the characters in said dialogues arguing with each other. Let's try it again. Let's see. Knock. Hello. Welcome to my home. See, I can't have them say who's there. Ridiculous. I was going to do the banana who. Banana. One more time. I ask you again, who? Banana who? Is that your name? See, that joke would take 20 minutes with those two characters. All the way, all just to get to the aren't you glad I didn't say banana again? So another thing I'll do is I'll pull the pencils out and see what the drawing looks like just on its own. And trying to, so there's some degree of improvement from the rough penciling to the inked layer. So I'm pleased. I'm pleased with that. That might be a good one-page suggestion now that you've come to it. I should write that down as a one-pager. Chris Walken tells Werner Herzog. I'm not joking. You should animate that, Jim. And now it's time for the comedy stylings of Christopher Walken and Werner Herzog. One of the fun things that really will change dramatically an initial drawing to once you develop a little more understanding of things is that I find that gravity counts more in my pictures now. Gravity was something that, hey, I'm just trying to get the characters down, the images down. You can't focus on realism or gravity or any of those things right now. But as soon as you start getting to that stage, then things start changing shape and form. And you realize that you can get more of that the count in your image. And then you make those changes as you go. You can't help it. It's one of those things where, well, that's how I did draw it. That's how I would have drawn it. But now I recognize this and this and this as being different. And I want to structurally put those differences, those changes into the page as I'm at this process. I think that you can it's almost like you're completely redrawing the image that you set out in the first place. So you can see the change that's happened in this bag and in the change of the strap being held by the hand over here because of those things. Those factors are, the kind of game changers that, you're not consciously necessarily aware of, but they do come into effect. And those little differences, those minor changes can actually add so much more to the projects, to the different things that you're working on. This is I used to wear a haversack all the time. It's like a little, sort of like a military bag that, was actually for kind of a carrying ammunition in or something of the like, or small items for guys around the World War II era. I just found it really helpful for me to always have, sketchbooks and whatever else in there. Surprise. Now I'm at the point where I'll always have a sketchbook in my van, or for some reason we're going out shopping. I've got pens and a sketchbook available just in case you're at Walmart and inspired, or wherever you are. So now that I've changed the slight layout of these bags, maybe that'll help a little bit better. So when I'm looking at the form now, I'm comfortable with the way the body works here. I'm comfortable with how the shape of the form is. But what I want to get is a little bit more creative with the details and the character. There you go. When a guy wears one, it's called a merce, or a man bag. I heard merce at one point, and I thought that was the most ridiculous thing. It's a bag. It's whatever it is. That's a merce, man. You carry that like a purse. All right, fine, it's a merce. I'm still a man. So I'm thinking about the planes here and how the shape of the clothing would move around, and where it would bundle up and where it wouldn't, so that some of these lines, well, they definitely need to change a little bit, because it's not quite, the initial scribble down here for the fold isn't working. But when we explore this and we pay a little more attention to the way that we've got folds and fabric happening, you can get some really fun organic shapes that keep the eye moving around. No, see, I didn't draw the cantina. That's all right, I'll draw it over top. Judy says, guys carry bags all the time now. It's very in. Anybody who's anybody has a MERS. Some warning just came up my screen. I completely missed. Yeah, I've never had any hang-ups or worry about the fact that I'm out carrying a bag. There's a reason I'm carrying a bag. Little circle, make it easy on myself. There we go. So just using that circular tool here, dropping in a stroke, small enough line. Yeah, that works. There it is. Look at that. It's almost like I know what I'm doing. I don't. Pull out that overhanging line. The overhanging participle. Kill some of these overarching lines there. It's a much cleaner and nicer line than any of the ones that I'm putting down. That's okay. Give this a little bit of form, a little bit of dimension. Fun stuff. It's just a bag, Christopher. And now for another therapy session. Am I still a man if I carry this bag? No. Thank you. So checking that, moving that pencil layer out, just making sure I got some connection with some of these lines, and continuing on. So one of the things about that I've learned about inking or drawing in a computer now since I guess since I really started using Photoshop in the last few months, is that the affordance that different layers affords me. Like if I draw this particular group of guys on this layer, so let's say, the guys in the foreground here, layer 1, the vehicle and some of these people on the street behind them, layer 2, and in the background is layer 3. Lets me do fun little effects on each subsequent layer. And so, I know this probably to many people sounds like, oh yeah, that's how Photoshop works. But I think that might be the thing about learning things on the fly and self-teaching, or just picking up whatever you can out of books that you sign up from the library. These things aren't principle. These things are stuff that comes, these tricks and tips are things that come along over the course of time. A little bit of movement in this map, a little more than I had before. So in this inking process for me, I'm completely comfortable with the fact that my lines are not an inker's lines where there's repetition of the lines, and it's very clearly obvious that that's the case, and I don't erase it. That's, I'm just doing this the way I'm doing this. So I'm not too hung up on that. Something came up recently, and this sort of speaks to working with others as well. A conversation that I'd heard And I don't know if the person was conscious of it. It was one on these, hey, here's the way to go about doing this talk. And the person chopped up a whole bunch of different working processes and discarded them completely. Never do this because that's just so awful. That's such a first year mistake. And he talked about, you have to have clean connecting lines and single stroke lines for any inking that's done, and any other way to do it is wrong. And I thought, well, okay, that's your aesthetic. That's a purist aesthetic to that. But it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the only way or that's the right way. I have a problem with the right way. I'm clearly a nonconformist, but this is the only way to do this. It is boring to me. There's lots of different ways to do things and lots of different opportunities in order to find those things. Hey, look out. It's Philip Chandler. Okay, Phil. I missed the shoe. You missed Dee Dee today, but you haven't missed this yet. One of the things that we have established is that guys carry bags all the time. Jim has cool cups that are for sale, which I'm going to look into. And anything else? Dee Dee went crazy at the Hobby Lobby, and you need to watch the last 2 minutes of her show. You're caught up. And also, everybody's welcome to call Salty Snacks Malcolm. All right, so now you know everything. Hello. And this is, I'm inking over a drawing from, I don't know. I think this might have been like September. And when I had kind of really just sort of trying to actually engage in Photoshop as more than just scan it and use the nothing but the rectangular tool. So I'm trying to put down some colors, some inks on here. So there's a structural change in that hand now. Minor, but it's there. And the thumb doesn't go where it was. Yeah, so I'm comfortable with this cat. He's coming together all right. Now the other change I make is in this hip. You'd still see this part of the form in front of that bag. So we're adding that in, changing this just a little bit, giving it a little bit more character. And I would change the direction of this line. I'm going to move this light too, as you can clearly tell. Now this is fun. The pouch at the side, or the pocket at the side here. Phil's got up. Thumbs up from Dee Dee. Now we're going to talk about ghosts. I think I like the play on this suggestion because of that. And I'm trying to build off on that for this. The urban Sasquatch hunters, the first thing it made me think of was all these programs about, here, I have to show you this visually. All the people that are, when you're watching a ghost program and there's somebody that's, I hear a spirit. And then off camera, somebody's knocked on the wall and like, something's knocking. It's probably the person talking. I love those shows. Those shows are absolutely ridiculous. I can sense that someone in this house, it's a 300-year-old house, died here. There's a really high likelihood that was the case. Yeah, there's definitely a person that's passed away in this home. And meanwhile, you find it was a Civil War hospital. Lots of people passed away here. So I'm going to changing this line just a little further here. Just moving around inside that form. And I'm going to move this leg up as well. And just give a little more tension. So it's clearly a very different line making approach to the pre-existing marks that I had down first. It's important that, as we're looking at different things that we're working on, that we allow ourselves, if we've done penciling at this point, and we've gone ahead and done inking at a separate point, that we can reevaluate those lines maybe and start to make a little more correction into those. Just to develop that a little bit further, give it something a little more interest to it, or a little more body and volume to that. Okay, so now the second leg, because I've got this here, I'm going to pull this leg down, keep the structure of it as it is, but I'm going to move it farther ahead so that the weight of the leg sits more clearly. And then I'm going to pull that up a little bit. So where he was before, he now sits like this. I'll thicken that leg up a little bit, but it feels a little bit stronger that way. So these are the things that are constantly going through my head when I'm working. And every different project, every different image that I'm working through, every different idea, or every different book I'm doing for somebody else, I think I always try to look at it as an opportunity in which I can try to further any skill set I might have, to push myself a little bit more, to develop my craft. Does that make sense? My craft. I want to get crafty like ice is cold. Bam! So, some of these abstract shapes that I would put in, like here, on the old drawing, I'm going to change those. Get rid of that, abstract, the second leg's a silhouette nonsense. And commit to drawing it, thinking about the form of the object and allowing myself to push myself creatively to draw in the whole shoe and laces and so on and so forth. It's those little things. They add up. Let's see how that sits without the blue. Happy it's a shoe. I think I'd like to do a little play with Ben-Day values into this as well. So when I'm talking about, if I'm looking at this image as 3 separate layers, okay, and in the foreground I got these cats walking along here, and we're drawing them as hot dogs. So the hot dog crew is in the foreground. That's layer 1. So if I've got layer 2 that's behind it, layer 2 is going to be the car here, vroom, vroom, and the people that are on the street and behind the car. And then I think I put a second car in over here behind the gang, or maybe a truck, like a delivery truck or something of the like, just to populate it a little bit more. I might put a little lean-to sign here on the sidewalk in this section up here. And so that would be the second layer. And then the street elements I would put in on that layer. The curb I'd put on this layer. And then, of course, that third layer would then be just the buildings in behind. I could even chop that up into layer, layer 3 and layer 4, but I'm just going to do it as one. So, in that way I can really play with the different aspects of the image that way. Presto. So, always thinking, always planning, always thinking ahead and trying to figure out what can I do to make this composition a little bit more interesting, and how can I go about it now, using some of the different traits that I've developed, and some of the greater comfort level that we have with a medium as we use it over time, and see how that presents or affords us opportunities, I would suggest, that we may not have been afforded beforehand. So it's a fun thing to be able to make visual images. I've got a couple of different things on the docket right now, and some things coming up on the docket that I'm having a lot of fun with, and I'm kind of frustrated about the fact that some of the things that I'm really enjoying doing, I can't really show anybody yet because they're not to be released yet. They're not at that point in time. It is not up for me to spill the beans. Okay, so there's a better version of this initial figure. I've changed some of the aspects of them. I've make some notes. I've changed this leg here, and then I've cleaned up a lot of the lines. I've adjusted how gravity affects these bags, and a nice cleaner circle on the compass. I'm sorry, what is this? Starts with the C. Anyways, water jug, and so that's coming together a little better there. So now I've got this. What have I done? I'm on the wrong layer. There we go. So now I've got this backpack here to set onto his back. This is something that I could grab a hold of the image and twist it around and adjust it to the shape that the better perspective that it sits on his back with. I'm just going to redraw it the way I want it. I drew it in the first place. I got the idea of it. But by changing the slight perspective shift on this, lets me looks like he's got a baby Baba. Baby Baba. Now, this line in the foreground on the sleeve that I'm taking out, I'm going to put it over top of the bottle. Two reasons. One, you don't want connecting lines, or you don't want lines where, let's say, an object here, right, sits down in front of, like it connects to this fold line here in the arm, because now that those two things sort of fuse into one another, right? So if you, I'm going to do this. So if you sit down and you take this arm here and you reinterpret it as this, now you know that this foreground object sits over the background object. So this sits over this. Does that make sense? I don't know, Chris. I don't know. I'm deleting my own notes. So, because I'm changing the direction of the backpack setup, that means these directional lines that are hanging down are changing here as well. So if I've got a pocket that sits on this unit, it's going to tuck into there. And there's where the overhang goes on the back of said unit. Clean that up because I don't want that overlapping line necessarily, right? right, so what else have I got going on in this fella? I'll throw this pocket forward and throw a little void there for the whatever object it is that's making that bunch out that way. Pulse back from it. But you can see how the change of it, perspective of it, gives a little more sense that this is attached to his back. Hopefully, that's the thing I'm going for anyhow. And then, so I'm going to start from here. If there's a cord or a rope of some kind that has tied this to his back, then these lines are going to come out and contort the image so that it attaches. And there's his rolled up sleeping bag. So that hopefully, once again, has a better sense of cohesion with the character himself, and that's attached to him. And I'll push that up right here in the background. You got your sleeping bag. There we go. So, yeah, so it's a different way of reinterpreting an older drawing to make it work in processes today. I'm going to change the direction of this leg here a little bit and allow a little more space and shape to it. Cross that over there. A little more weight. Yeah, just gives you a better sense of the leg. And then this line has to come up a little bit more because I gave him a thin thigh. I think there'd be a little more weight on the bottom part of that leg. Really skinny guys draw really skinny characters. Big guys draw big characters, and it's always tricky to draw against, or gals the same way. You know, it's tricky to draw against your type. A lot of characters that you illustrate, some of the principal aspects of them might be reminiscent of your own features. It's just because it's the face we know best, and so we tend to project that face into all the other faces that we see. You know, if you've sat down for any given amount of time drawing your own face, you know, you can't help but see that face in other people's images that you're trying to represent. So there'll be a bit of an overhang. Whoops. Give one of them split eyebrows like the kids were today. So there'll be a bit of a, make sure I'm on the right layer. A little shadow that's going to hang over the face there. A note for myself on that. I took the glasses out. I had the character with glasses before. Just took them out. Sometimes we draw those glasses in because it's expedient, but it doesn't make us have to think about how a face works. Looking at this now, it almost looks like I've drawn Mick Fleetwood here. Dude, the drummer from Fleetwood Mac searches for Sasquatches. It's actually funny because Mick Fleetwood's a very tall guy. Maybe he does. Who knows? A little more into the development, into that beard. Look at the shape of that face a little bit more. Give it a little more form. It's not the most exciting thing in the world, folks, and hopefully there's something in here that people can use, change the structure of that face a little bit, just a little bit. Now you can look at it here. Why can't you tell what's going on? That's what he's saying. He's looking back at him and saying, Jen, tell me that you love me. Please. No. I wrote that. I didn't. So I'm drawing the camera straps as they're coming down. Adjusting those a little bit, just giving them a little bit of bend to give it a little more sense of weight. And we're going to pop that line out there. Just give it a little bit of movement to it. Pull that line back down. Now, there might be far more sufficient ways of inking, far more effective and time-enhancing ways of inking stuff that, use vector lines or whatever. I've heard vector lines said by people, not entirely. Clearly, it's something I haven't investigated, but, sharp, nice lines that hold on to the form or hold on to that nice bend. And I'm going to have to try to learn a little bit more about that. Yeah, it's funny. I don't have a formal education in anything. I went to high school and got on with life. And, I was, that first guy in your class that's married and has kids. I was that guy. And so university and college wasn't an option for me at the time. But you pick up things, and the more that we try in our artistic journey to learn as we go, you pick up things over time. Yeah, see, there's some more fun lines I'm trying to put through here. Just a little better comprehension of how I can put these lines together now to show some of these folds, some of this movement in this fabric. Far more complicated than how it was before, that's for sure. It's challenging when you look at something that you've already done that you didn't finish and go, oh, I've got to finish that thing. I don't want to do it like that. I want to do it how I do it now. Well, try to approach it in the easiest way you can. That's my justification for myself there. Oh, I think I dropped out for a second there. We're having a snowstorm, ice storm here in London right now, so that might be conducive to, or not conducive to streaming going efficiently and effectively here and consistent. So I moved the hair on the neckline a little bit. Good stuff. Happy. I say good stuff, or I say yeah, or that's it, or good, yeah. And it's a way of talking to myself. It's almost like I'm reassuring myself as I go. Did not finish the second strap on the man purse, the man bag. So all done. And we're going to throw that strap in front of the backpack because that's where it would sit in space. Let's see how that looks now. Hey! It doesn't look... See, this is what I mean by overhanging lines. There needs to be a distinct enough separation that I know there's no doubt in the viewer that this line travels behind the bag. I'm sorry, this line of the bag travels behind the shirt. So if that means I need to just slightly switch the direction of said bag strap, then it makes it more clear that the clothing overhangs the bag. Here's the clothing, here's the bag. Here's the bag. So we want to make sure that this is distinctly different from this. And more of the odd thoughts that go through my head while I'm drawing. It's one of the things I really had to think about a lot here was there's the fragility of method that, that comes into play when you're sharing part of your process with other people, is that there's the fragility in how I work and what things work for me in my comfort zone for how I go about making things. And exposing that to everybody else by saying these things aloud, that can be daunting. I mean, that could be something that you sit down and do and then think, why did I tell him all that stuff? Now I look like, oh, this guy. I gotta be honest, those thoughts pass through my brain maybe while I'm doing the stream, but I immediately let them go because I don't expect that whatever it is that I'm going about doing here is the be all end all going to affect anybody's real creative process. I like that leg better. But if there's things they're doing along the way that you can look at and go, oh my God, I'm doing that from now on. That's easier for the way I do it. So be it. We all work very differently. Hey, this has nothing to do with what I was just talking about, but I just remembered something. Paul Pate has started working on his next book, and he has set up, I feel like Paul Pate has set up an Instagram for it. Correct me if I'm wrong, and Paul, if you're here, or if anybody here has, better knowledge than this rambling guy. But either way, get a look at that. Let's all of us take a peek at what this Paul fella's doing. I gotta, once I get myself together here, I got pictures of John and Paul when I send them. Changing the shape of that arm a little bit. Oh, let's see, there we go, Paul. If you're watching this or not. That's clapping. Dee is giving Paul clapping. All kinds of different things are happening, folks, and I'm really, really happy to see it. Phil, you're working on a bunch of stuff, and you're doing some live streaming with Frank, with I'm so sorry, and I apologize for forgetting everybody's names. I have numbers on my kids. No, I don't. I'm just not a very good person for names on the fly. I meet people at public events and go, "Hey, guy." No, I don't do that either. But I'm not too far removed from that. Good heavens! Hey, Buckaroo. Hey, sport. So now I'm getting this gurney in here. Gurney, wheelie cart. Probably 15 different names depending on where people are living. So changing the structure of this hand a little bit because, trying to make improvements as we go. So there's the structural changes. Oops, I'm sorry. There's the structural changes in that arm, which I think add a little more natural direction to the arm. Anyhow, yeah, people take a look at Paul has at least a new Instagram, I believe, and maybe I'm wrong. If I am, I apologize. But It looked to me like it was brand new. By the way, big thumbs up. If anybody has anything that they've got coming up, if anybody's got new projects they're doing, or that you want others to see on social whatnot or anything like that, please feel free to let us all know. So the idea for this was suitcase. If I'm remembering correctly, I had a suit. This was a bit of a balancing act of items over his shoulder. One of which is a suitcase. Skin lines. Here we go. My wife and I have been doing all kinds of television watching together, and so she's got a suggestion for me for a page that's coming up called Remarriage and Dishes, because the font that's used for this one television program that we're looking at is so bad. It's supposed to say Remarriage and Desires, and it's about people getting remarried and trying to find love through online dating connections and things like that. It's a dramedy, dramatic comedy, and from Korea, but the font is so bad on this title that it looks like it says Remarriage and Dishes, and we've both read it that way now, but it's Remarriage and Desires, and the idea, the concept of that page is so fun, because marriage, dishes might have been a problem in a previous marriage. So maybe that's an actual something. So we're going to explore that as a one-page story idea. I just thought it was a lot of fun. So I'm just putting some of these boxes and I'm laying one over the next. And he's got this haphazard pile of things on the back. And the idea is, here is your camera guy, here's your host, your technician, sound technician, lighting guy, here's your camera guy, and the guy who's holding nothing is the producer. or it may well be that this first person's the producer, and I'm going to put him in a silly suit or something, but he's got a hazard vest on that he'll be wearing, a reflective vest. And so the idea is that these, I think that now that I'm thinking about it, the guy in the first person in this line of people is the producer. That's why he's got the map. We're going this way, fellas. And then you've got the two technicians, the sound and lighting guy and the camera guy. And then the last person who'll be dressed quite nicely and waving at people in the street, thinking that, anybody's recognizing him. And he'll be wearing a reflective vest, like here's your television host right there. Just a face, just a talking face. Well, I got at least this guy done here. Try to give some character to the belt, give a little more form to it, a little more dimension. But and the belt only works if it's looped into the trousers. So make sure we got that. Belt loops are a thing I had a hard time with, because here's your belt, okay, on your waist, and then you've got your pants, right? And what a lot of people forget is, so they'll draw the belt loops like this, and maybe they'll put the belt buckle, okay? But what they always forget to do is make it add a part of the pants. And I know that sounds silly to actually have to bring up and mention, but it's a real thing. I've seen so many different instances where somebody will draw a character with a belt, And that belt is doing nothing. That belt isn't even attached to the person, or it's definitely not holding their pants up. And then if it is holding their pants up, I haven't changed the shape of the pants. Right? The pants have got to be pulled up to that height, to that pitch. Tell us more about belt loops, Chris. I'm going to draw a secret little belt loop over here and put that in there, and that'll just be our little secret there. We're not going to tell anybody else about that. I like that swooshing sound a belt makes when it goes through your loops. ASMR Bob Ross this up for you. And we put this big old pocket on the side here. I like to carry nuts and feed around in my pocket in case I meet a nice old squirrel in the park. There you go. There's your Bob Ross moments. I'm not sure what this shape is initially that was drawn on the original. I'm not sure what I was trying to get across there. Oh, fix that up. Oh, get that working better. Yep. Frank Salazar has been drawing a lot of stuff lately. Now, on a recent Artcasters, that Josh had said that he's going to get back to doing some posting. Josh Kemp. Looking forward to that. I got involved with this whole crazy bunch of folks that I've had the good fortune to meet, from Scott Circlin and then Josh Kemball's videos. So I'm looking forward, as many people that are familiar with Josh's work as are probably looking forward to Josh posting again, but in his own time and when it's right for him, and has the affordance of time and to do it. But when he does, I'll be watching those. Should never be any pressure, I think, to worrying about what other people are thinking and whatever creative processes we're doing. I don't come on each day out of a sense of dutiful obligation. I come on each day because it's a way to engage with others, yes, but it's also a way for me to let the old squirrels go to the yard there and get to work. Stop just sitting there cycling around in my own brain, my own noggin. So there's some changes in that leg now, and I would put some of these structural lines in that, some of these seam lines and so forth of the jeans through that leg to keep that line moving through there. And tighten that line on the leg down a little bit, cut down on some of his thickness. Oh, that's an important thing that Dee has just said. Whatever people are doing and whenever they're posting and whatever we go about doing, really, folks, you gotta love doing it and have the time to do it. Don't do it for others. Do it for you to some extent, and then of course that the engagement with others is be polite, but because those people aren't going to contact you and go, oh, hello, what are you posting again? You're overdue. I hope. And, but yeah, at the same time, if, don't come on and say, I ain't going to post until I want us to shut up. That doesn't help you either. Enjoy what you're doing. Other people enjoy it too. Good stuff. That falls into the same banner of, even though I take the one-page suggestions, I clearly call them as suggestions. I clearly deny any interest in doing scripts for these one-page suggestions, because I'm drawing some projects that are according to script in the mornings each day. And that's when I do that. The one-page suggestions is a mental break for me from that. And and I don't mind having a camera on while I'm working. And if there's ideas and approaches that I'm taking that other people can benefit from, great. But at the same time, I've been finding that there's insights and stuff that I'm getting from some people that are watching that are helping my creative journey along the way. Like, hey, why don't you try this? Hey, you should use that. Have you ever tried this thing? And thank you for those. Those are great. And thank you for the one-page suggestions. But what I was referring to a moment ago is that clearly I'm putting my own bent on them. Whether it was a joke or whether it, whatever idea that, let's say yesterday's page of Joan Crawford, David Bowie, and Rasputin sharing a big breakfast burrito, whatever was going through Jim's head when he suggested that, I put my own spin on it, that's for sure. And hopefully I got a couple layers on there like an onion, layer it up. Because that's why there's a reason it's called heavenly. Whether anybody gets that or not, those are the sort of, gotta have fun doing it. Well, let's see, what do we got? Dee Dee says, well, we, the people I know, do check on each other, and if we haven't seen someone in weeks or months, no, it's important to check on each other for sure. I completely agree with that, but never hassle anybody to post for sure. I think that there's a real, I would suggest this, that if anybody that might watch this has not as yet checked out what happens on Dee Dee's channel, take a look at that. You want to see a community of people that actually are really enthusiastically caring about one another and supportive and encouraging of one another. I've never seen that before like that. There's, the Artcaster guys, everybody is encouraging and whatnot and so forth, but it's not even close to the level that it happens amongst all of the people that I find engaging in conversation and interaction on Dee Dee's. And I'm not saying that to Dee Dee in any way, shape, or form, other than to say that that's a repressive bunch of caricatures there, and they're pretty spread out from what I can understand. So kudos to every single one of them souls there. What's that? Oh yeah. You're welcome. Thanks to that example of humanity and all those characters that are taking part in it. I'm going to round this shoulder up here a little bit, take some of that accent off the top. There we go. See how it changes the weight of the see, so now with the arm, the idea here, by rounding this line here as opposed to the bump that it was, the idea is that it now makes that weight feel like, okay, it's being dragged, by this. There's a pivot of the pressure on the shoulder here, the angling of the hand, so there'd be stress in this wrist as it's dragging this object, all this junk piled up here and on top and so forth, which is why the legs are, the idea is that they're staggering forward. I don't know if you've ever had to haul a bunch of weight on a little two-wheeler cart there, but there's a trick, such an angle as it takes the weight right off of it. But you're never going to find that on a if you're having to carry all this stuff down a city street, because that weight is going to be constantly having to be readjusted all the time, because you've got to go over this curb and over that and down this and over that, and oh my goodness. But definitely trying to apply that to the physicality of this character. Yeah, they're weighted down, definitely, for sure. You want to have a lot of burden. The more burden, the more feeling. Like I would I'm going to change the angle on this guy. Whoops, I'm on the wrong one. I'm on the razor still. I'm going to change the angle on this kid, heighten that a little bit more, pull his face a little further ahead, and then have those arms. He's trying to carry this weight, but by changing the form a little bit, it puts, hopefully there's more tension in here, in these areas, in the sense that there's tension in the back, and there's tension in these elbows and these forearms. All these muscles are being used more that way, so that you know that there's some actual structural weight to this heavy object here and this heavy object here. And then, of course, I'm also going to need to beef up the amount of stuff that's on his back in order to exemplify that just a little bit more. Just put a little more burden and strain on him. So it's the sort of stuff that when we're given this opportunity of going over and readdressing an older drawing, the more that we've practiced up on some of these ideas and notions in our execution of drawings and of images, it's important that we put those in. Where does it say here? The guy carrying the suitcase looks like his arms are being pulled down. Oh, well, good. That's good. I want that. I want that sense of, oh, here we are. Where it is now in the original pencil version, it just looks like they're just sort of overly long and just dead weights. And so I want to get away from that. How you doing, Frank? So, yeah. And so the tilt on this cart, I want to readdress. I'm going to shift the weight of this a little bit more of an angle to here, which again makes it feel like it's being pulled, but and by tilting it up like that, you get a better sense of the pivot of the weight. But it's all the junk that he's balancing on top that's problematic. Frank's great. He's great. Let's talk about you earlier, Frank. You know what you did. You're doing some good stuff, buddy. Getting to work there. Yeah, tilt this hat a little bit over his eyes a little more. Just give him a little bit more character. There's a fun thing. When you're carrying stuff and you got a hat on, it's not going to agree with you. And however you're trying to wear it, it's just not. It's either going to lean down too far in your eyes, or it's going to lean back too far off the back of your head. And I'll play with that a little bit and that. See how that looks. Might be a little bit squashed, but leave that be for now. And I'm going to give him his hair a little more weight in its movement. So one of the things that helped me out in figuring out some of these things a little bit more is I sat down and I went through, I'm going to write his name down. Mitch Bird is the artist. And you know what? I'm going to do something here. I'm going to switch cameras for a moment. And it's 1:45, so we're going to get wrapping up in a second. But I'm going to switch cameras. I'm the other camera. And I'm going to pull this book out just to show you for a second. Maybe I should have had that prepared in advance, hey? Just the book that I lent to Tristan. That's okay. I got another one right here. Just give me one sec. Bird, there he is. Okay, so as I was saying, Mitch Bird is a guy who the Blue Line Pro was the artist that Blue Line Pro had hired to into the pile to do some instructional books on how to draw and how to understand weight and movement and form. I'm going to show you. Here's some safe pages. There's a fair amount of physical form, male and female, in here. Thanks, Frank. His eyes are peering into my soul. So what Mitch Bird talks about is things like this. When you look at these boxes and these items that are below the dragons, you want to have them for them to have dimensional form, but you also want to have a sense of the cascading weight that moves through. Oh, that's very nice of you as well, Dee Dee. Thank you. So you want to have that sense of falling weight in the form. And so when we look at things like, well, let me, okay, so here is a couple of pages of good, safe fun. So when we see this object here in the sand, you can see that there's a tilt on this, on the axis of where the object sits. And so when you see that the weight, the dispensation of weight from the falling weight of the sand here, but when you see that it's sitting inside of the sand volume, that it's fallen into that, and that this character in relationship to this character gives you a sense of depth in that image. When we look at different ways of interpreting things, like here is a cowboy and a cowgal that are riding on a stagecoach, and you get the sense by just slightly tilting some of the arrows and some of the movement throughout the image that there's action, that there's flow, that there's an energy to that. The fact that the wagon's tilted back a little bit, the fact that he's leaning into that, the fact that line, that directional push follows through in her outfit here. All of those different things give a sense of movement and a different, the different flow. Why did the wrestler fight Mitch Bird? Frank has asked. Can you ask that in the form of Christopher Walken, please? That's the request of the day. So here's another thing where we've got different animals and different creatures, and the whole intention is to try to, you wanted to flip the bird. Nicely done, Frank. That's a pretty good job. So he talks about folds and weight in the human body. Okay, so I'm going to use this, and he talks about how you need to understand that there's an underlying skeletal structure to each form, but you need to understand that, when you're drawing people and you're drawing people of different body and shape, that you appreciate how the skin, how weight moves on a body. Like there's sort of, I highly recommend people look at Mitch Bird's books, his Blue Line Pro books that he puts out. Somebody put Frank in the timeout. Because there's a great benefit to that. There's a great benefit to understanding how body and shape moves and how things are pushed and pulled around in gravity. And he draws, he's not a guy that sits down for a uniform superheroine type physique. And so it lets you develop this real great appreciation of the differences that all of our forms in our bodies and our shapes have. And I think that I can't appreciate that enough of his work. So, there's here's another example of what I was trying to illustrate earlier about shapes and forms and how those things work together and how they give form gives function. Like here's two guys in outer space working on a spaceship, and yet at the same time, your brain can fill in the blank whether they're underwater or they're in outer space or wherever they are, that there's flow and there's movement and there's weight and there's volumes in the way that he draws and the way that he has a comprehension of how those elements work together. So his name is Mitch Bird. take a look at them. It really helps me get a better grasp on, how I worked before. And just the last little bit by reassessing how I draw some of the weight and line and volume when I'm working now, and now that I'm becoming more comfortable with digital, to be able to change the way that comes together. So that's helped me out. Anyhow, today's page is Urban Sasquatch Hunters that I'm working on. What's this? You can make some awesome adult color books. Oh, well, I think that's definitely a thing that a lot of people could do. I like the idea of some coloring books from Gary, some of the dinosaur stuff, the UFO stuff. I think that's I really like the way he depicts both of those things, and I definitely want to see more of that. I'm really looking forward to his next book, and I think that coloring books is something that a lot of people consider. There's a friend of Phillips that I believe he says he's putting out like 100 coloring books or 30 coloring. I don't know how many coloring books this year alone to try to capitalize on a coloring book market out there. Enrique, I can't remember his last name. I'm sorry, but yeah, fantastic. Dive right into that. What is? People love to color detailed images. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed, they do. This is your brain. This is your brain learning to add weight to your drawings. Yeah, that's exactly how it is. Thank you, Dee. It is an Enrique, and they look pretty interesting. I bought one. They're made for kids. Oh, sure. But the simplistic images. I don't know about you, but whenever I was coloring with my kids, as they're coloring in their coloring books, if I'm coloring on this page and they're coloring on that page, my page, I'm just adding scales to the fish and just having a go with it. And it used to really annoy my daughter when she'd sit there coloring with Dad, and Dad's adding all this nonsense to his side of the page, and she'd tell me I was ruining it. I'm just having my own fun, but adding far more complexity to it than it initially has for the kids to use. Otherwise, I'd color it, unless I'm just moving it slow and plodding along as much as I could, I'd color it too fast and she'd be annoyed by that. So Enrique does some amazing comic art too. Cool. I haven't seen any of that. I have to take a look. Okay. Well, this has been a lot of fun. This is today's Jim Jam. And I'm going to keep plodding away on this sucker tonight and get this inked up. Now, the other scan that you saw me drop into this image is right here, and it's got some. I'll rotate that. There's some rough breakdowns in this of further panels for this page, and I'll be dropping some of those in. But the entire notion of the Urban Sasquatch Hunters is that here's these characters plodding around downtown with all this equipment and setting up and listening for Sasquatches in downtown. And I think that this is, again, one of those ideas that can be reevaluated and come back to over a couple different single pages, sort of like the idea of little insert continuing sketches that are spread out about the direction of a program, where we'll come back to these guys and let you know if they see anything, and then you come back 15 minutes later in the show, and so here's our Urban Sasquatch Hunters. They've brought out this fantastic equipment, and they're really going to find these. This will really help them in order to identify the Sasquatches by smell. Check back in on how that's working, and then you can come back again a third time and have them sleeping, buckled up in their tent sleeping, and have some characters stealing all of their equipment while they're unconscious, and then a Sasquatch walking by their tent. I love stuff like that. So I don't know, but anyways, I'm gonna get at least the first third of these ideas on this page. So Listen, it's been a lot of fun. I hope everybody's having a good day. I'll get this one finished off, and tomorrow's stream, tomorrow's one page is going to be, where are we now? It'll either be Remarriage and Dishes or Famous Historical Characters in a Boxing Contest. Yeah. So, again, as per usual, Dee Dee and everybody else, thank you for hanging out. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for checking in today. And thanks very much, Dee Dee. I'm glad you had fun. But thanks for hanging out. If anybody has one-page comment suggestions, you know how to lay them on me, and we'll put those onto the list and get those moving out. I am 37 pages done of my objective 50 to be done in order to start compiling some for this next book. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Anybody that has any interest in these pages, I think I got the website working that you can order on it online now. So yeah, that's about it. Okay. Oh, Philip says so he hasn't commented. Oh, Philip, we love you anyways. You don't have to sit here commenting. That's fine. But thanks for hanging out, Philip. All right, everybody, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to get back to doing this, and I will see you tomorrow at 2 o'clock. In the meantime, keep creating. Philip says, can I have a quick plug? Let's go see Philip. Check out Philip's stuff. Definitely. Philip Chandler does some great stuff. Philip is doing a live tonight at midnight. Okay, there you go. Everybody go check out Philip's live tonight at midnight. And I think the Narcasters tonight at 11 o'clock, and then Philip will be on at 12 o'clock, and I'll be back here tomorrow at 2 o'clock. There we go. These are all EST times I'm giving. Thank you, Philip. Look forward to that. I'll try to, if I'm up, I'll check in. Okay, everybody. Thanks very much. Have a good night. Keep creating. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.